Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. I am so happy to welcome you to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, how historical neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very happy and absolutely delighted that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show and let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, Audible, CastBox, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. We think this episode is going to become one of your favorite shows. Two fantastic guests. First up, Brandin Bryant, NFL star. He is here to celebrate, so you want to be an athlete. Later in the show, Scott Sollers will be here celebrating A Tall Tale, how the Ostriches got their long legs and necks. Are you looking for a new book to add to your family library? Well, I have great news for you. Lynn Podrat, the award-winning author of Listen to Me, How My Down Syndrome Brother Saved My Life, has once again shared with us her family and a brand new book. It's called My Sister Wants an Elephant. Randy's sister wants a what? And his mom isn't flat out saying no? My Sister Wants an Elephant is a true story of two siblings who team up together to convince their mother to let them own a couple of wild animals as pets, and a mom who just might be persuaded. This book is full of humor and fun. It's a good lesson in not giving up on your dreams, no matter how truly wild they may be. Get your copy today. My Sister Wants an Elephant by Lynn Podrat. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Florida. Our guest is coming to us today to celebrate his brand new children's book. It's called So You Want to Be an Athlete. Please welcome to the show NFL star Brandin Bryant. Hey, Brandin, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm really excited to have you on here to talk about this book. There are so many kids out there who dream of becoming a professional athlete, so many parents who are hoping their kids will become at least a scholarship athlete for college. I think this is a great book and a great topic to celebrate.
Thank you. Of course, I agree. But, it was a topic that spoke to me, and the contents of the book are just, things that I wish I knew when I was a kid. So, most kids, they want to play sports, they like sports, and, I wanted this book to serve as somewhat of a roadmap to, to get to where you want to be, and so you'll know as a reader what it takes.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the book. Who are we going to meet, and what are the characters going to teach us?
So in the book, it's more so a poem, a poem with no named characters. The characters have names, obviously, in my world, but I didn't name them in the book. It's just a poem speaking to children, speaking to kids. And, it's just a story, it's just line after line. This is what it's going to take to succeed. You'll try, you'll fail, but you got to try again. Anything is possible, but, you have to put the work in. And then coupled with that, we just talk about academics, far too often kids think, hey, I can dribble a ball, I can shoot, I'm fast, I'm strong, I'm big. That's all it takes. I'll make it and I won't have any issues. Well, this book illuminates what's really going on. You have to be smart. You have to test well. You have to have good grades in order to, accept the scholarship to play at that collegiate level.
Yeah. What was it that inspired you? Were you on the line, sacking quarterbacks, thinking to yourself, I'm going to write a kid's book?
So this one I actually wrote this book in 2020 during the lockdown, and although I didn't publish it until 2024, in 2020 when I wrote it, it was just, everybody's at home, we're locked in, and, there's just bad story after bad story that was coming on the news. I'm sure everyone remembers, just statistics coming across, this is wrong, this, that, health, education. And I saw a stat about literacy, and it was alarming to me. It was somewhere along the lines of the lack of literacy in our nation. And, I believe it was the average fourth grader doesn't read at a proficient, level of literacy. And if they're not reading proficiently by fourth grade, then they most likely never will. And I'm thinking, okay, what can I do to change that? There's not much, I could, but I'll write a book, maybe I'll write a book that's more appealing to the kids and they'll actually pick it up and read it. And, that'll spark the joy of reading that, all people that love reading once, they all remember that first book they had that sparked that joy. So I wanted this to be that first book. I wanted to reach what they call the reluctant readers. There's kids who just don't know that they'll actually like to read, so they don't give it a try.
Yeah. You hit on so many really important topics. The fact that kids aren't reading proficiently in third and fourth grade, one of the things that I was really surprised to learn while doing the podcast is that kids, typically in our education system here in the States, kids learn to read from preschool, kindergarten to second grade. In third grade, they're reading to learn. And if they're not able to read on their own, they're probably not going to get the help that they need. And that's going to prevent them from learning the other subjects that the other kids are reading about.
Exactly. So, reading is the fundamental block to all education. If you can't read, then how can you expect to get along in science class or, actually comprehend a math textbook? So, as you know, if you can't read, you're falling behind, and not just in education, but in so many other aspects of life. If you're not reading proficiently and well into grade school, then you're sad to say you're statistic waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The rates, the likelihood of you being incarcerated, the likelihood of teenage pregnancy, the likelihood of being a welfare recipient, or just thing after thing, and it just all starts with reading proficiently at an early age. So, I think it's our job as adults to pay it forward to the next generation.
Yeah. We had another NFL star on the show, now literacy advocator like you, Malcolm Mitchell from former New England Patriots. And he shared in his story that, like a lot of athletes, he just kind of got pushed through the system. And it wasn't until he was in college when he realized that he really couldn't read. And thankfully, he was able to teach himself how to read and succeed in college, and now is like you, is writing books. What about your experience in the education system? Is that similar to your story, or did you have another experience?
No, I was always actually a very good reader. Always read above my grade level. I had, thankfully, my grandparents and my parents were very involved into making sure I was a good reader. They knew how important education was. My grandfather was actually a principal and a teacher, and he would actually, volunteer at the church to teach kids to read. And he would have my sister and I also, helping
mm-hmm.
in that program. And I always remember that. But my thing was, once I got to high school, 6th, 7th grade, but on 8th, 9th grade, I didn't appreciate education. I was just at school, just waiting for the bell to ring. I really wasn't interested in school, and, my grades began to reflect that. So I remember being in 9th grade and got my report card, my first report card. My GPA was like 1.3 or 1.7, something along those lines. And I didn't care. I was like, okay, well, that's that. I'm good at football, and, I'll go to school anyway. And it got to the point where it was almost too late. Maybe it was my 10th or 11th grade year. And a guidance counselor pulled me aside and said, if you continue on this plan, not only will you not be able to, go to school, and you won't be, qualified from the NCAA clearinghouse, but you probably won't graduate on time. Like, you'll be looking at summer school every summer from here until you graduate. And, you might have to look at different options, such as getting a GED or, falling behind a grade, repeating a grade. And I couldn't believe that. And it was, just in time that, I was able to turn it around and apply myself. And it was purely just an application and just putting in the work. Cause when I got to college, I applied myself. I began to, fall in love with school, and I actually, graduated college with close to a 4.0 GPA.
Awesome. Good for you. I had a similar experience in high school, and one of the things that was very surprising for me was this thing called when if you don't have a certain GPA, you can't play sports.
Yeah.
And that was quite a surprise.
Yeah. Most kids, like Malcolm Mitchell said, these schools and, these programs, we're all to blame. They're to blame. We allow these kids to get pushed through because he can jump high, he can shoot, he can play football. And, we'll do everything within our power to just push them through and scoot them by. So, that we're enabling the kids. Mm-hmm. If that's the proper word I'm looking for. We're enabling them to be able to use athletics as a crutch. But one day sports ends for everyone. It might be after a 10-year NFL career. It might be after high school. And if we've allowed you to go along this far without applying yourself, what's going to happen when football's over? Mm-hmm. And we throw you into the real world. Now you're 19 years old and you can't read. So it's just, like I said, it's something that we all have to do our part in to fix.
Absolutely. Hey, I don't know if you know the statistics or not, but how realistic is it for a kid, who works really hard and is dedicated to their sport, to actually play professionally?
So for football, my understanding of the statistic is out of, let's say there's 10 million kids that play high school football, 1% of those kids will actually play Division I. 1% of all high school kids will play Division I. Then out of the Division I kids that want to go to the NFL, it's another 1% of maybe it's either college as a whole or Division I. An additional 1% only make it to the NFL. So there are only 256 draft picks, something like that every year. So out of the thousands and thousands of people that enter the draft, only 256 are actually drafted. And then there's another round of, people who get tryouts and, undrafted, free agent contracts. And out of those guys, maybe 50 of them make an NFL team. If that, that's probably being generous. It's probably more so like 3 per team or one per team. So maybe 32 undrafted free agents actually make a team. And then for every guy that makes a team, guess what? Somebody's cut.
Yeah.
So for every person that accomplishes their dream, that's one other person saying, you're telling one other person your dream's over.
Yeah. And typical career in the in the NFL is not very long, is it? It's like 4 or 5 years.
No, they actually say it's 3. They say the average NFL career is 3 years, but I think I believe those numbers are skewed as well because it doesn't account for the guys that go to rookie minicamp, the guys that get a tryout that, they're only in the NFL for a week. They count the guys that actually make the opening day team, not everyone who comes in. Cause when you come into a rookie minicamp, there's 100 guys, right? And then out of those 100 guys, maybe only 12 of them go to the next round. And out of those 12 guys, maybe only 8 of them actually stick around the entire year. So, man, they say it's 3 years, but it's probably closer to like 1.5.
Wow. And I mentioned that because I think it's for those kids that are out there that are great athletes and maybe the parents who are listening who are like, oh yeah, but my kid is going to be the exception. My kid's going to be in that 1%. And it's like, maybe, but there are these things called injuries, and and even if they do get in there, it might be just for a cup of coffee or a year or 3 years. The education, the reading is so very, very important.
Yes, I agree, and I never want to throw water on anyone's dreams. Anyone can make it. With hard work and dedication and consistency, anything is possible. But like you said, there are a lot of things you just can't control. You can't control, you get in a car crash and you break a bone in your back or your leg, or, you step on the field and you tear your Achilles day one and your career's over. So what will you fall back on? Mm-hmm. Because the game ends for everyone. Michael Jordan, the best player of all time. Deion Sanders, one of the best players of all time. He has a job. Michael Jordan has a job. When LeBron James finishes this elite career, he's going to have something else he has to do. And you just see these guys, you see the other stats as well, like the amount of NFL players, NBA players, or NHL players that go broke after your career. Mm-hmm. So how are you going to make sure you're not falling in that statistic as well? And that's from educating yourself at an early age.
Yeah. Did you dream when you were young in college, once you kind of got yourself together and got over the high school laziness or dislike of school, Did you dream that one day you'd be writing a children's book?
Not really. I always, kind of excelled in classes where I had to write. I was very good at, the language arts classes, the social studies classes, the history class, any class where I had to write a paper and, use my creativity and I could, put words on paper, I would do good at. I never really enjoyed the math and the science classes as much as I enjoyed like the actual, the literature based classes. But it kind of crept into me in college. I started to read a little more, and as I began to read books, I'm like, this is more fun than I ever thought it was as a kid. I think I want to write a book, and I put that into my mind, probably somewhere, my, 19 or early 20s, 20, 21, 22. And it kind of just, lay dormant in me until that day during the lockdown and COVID. And it was just something like, I'm like, it's just something I got to do. It's just something I got to do.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a passion project. And, thankfully, I was able to make it happen.
That's really fantastic. The pandemic, I think, is going to go down in addition to, locking us up for a couple of years. It also launched a whole lot of books and almost 2 million podcasts.
Yeah. We're all, in our homes or, condos, apartments, and we realize how much we actually miss human connection,
Yeah.
The thing that we took for granted for our whole lives. We realized how important it was. And just to speak to other people and to talk to them and to have new concepts, new books, new podcasts, because everything was taken away from us for a while. So, I believe a lot of, creators were born throughout that time.
Yeah. I'm really curious. I had a friend, a guy I went to high school with who played pro ball with the Seahawks for a long career. But I've never had the opportunity to be in a stadium and hear the 50, 60,000 people roar. What was a highlight moment for you in your NFL career?
And one of the plays that comes to my mind immediately is when I got the opportunity to sack Cam Newton. Actually, against your beloved Patriots. So, yeah, it was when Cam was with the Patriots. We were with the Bills. It was an empty stadium. It went down as a tackle for loss, but it was definitely a sack. Man, they just, kind of player hated on me in the stat column. But it was an empty stadium in Buffalo at New Air Stadium, now Highmark Stadium, and Cam Newton was back there. He dropped back. I'm going one-on-one against Joe Thuney. And boom, got Cam Newton back there, man. It was definitely a play I'll never forget. Sad to say there weren't, any stands in the crowd. I could just hear my guys and the coaches, celebrating for me back there. But definitely a memorable experience.
Yeah. Hey, what would you say? I had an experience, a real neat experience. You were talking about reluctant readers. I was at the Chicago Touring Game Fair many years ago, and a very lovely family came along, and mom and dad and a bunch of little kids in a stroller, and then an 11 or 12-year-old big sister. And I had a bunch of books at my booth, and the little kids were loving them. And I asked the oldest sister, I said, "Hey, what kind of books do you like to read?" And she said, I hate reading. I don't want to read. And I said, "Why?" And I had this real fun book that was written by Stephen Joseph about the Tarantocranchosaurus, and it's just a book with all sorts of silly words and difficult to pronounce words. And I said, "Just read this. Just read it." And she started giggling and laughing, and it was like, I think it was probably the first time that she was reading on her own and enjoyed it and had a smile on her face. Are you envisioning that happening with your book?
Yeah, excuse me. Yes, that is the entire purpose of my book, entire purpose of this project. I want to reach the kids that like to read as well, but I really want to reach those reluctant readers. The kids that are just out there, they don't think it's cool to read. Their friends are telling them it's not cool to read. Maybe they got an uncle or aunt or someone they look up to that just doesn't read and they're not exposed to it. And they just don't think it's for them. So I wanted to tie it around sports because I know kids like sports. And if you can just get them to say, "Hey, this might be cool. What's this? So you want to be an athlete? I want to be an athlete. Pick it up." Now all of a sudden they've read the first page and now all of a sudden they found themselves at the end of the book and they've accidentally read the entire book.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, that's the crowd I want to reach. And, it's just, I think the topic will do just that, so, I'm just, ecstatic when I see a kid that doesn't like to read. And I go to one of my friend's house and they're talking to the kid about the book, and the kid is just real protective of the book. Like, hey, that's my book. Give me my book. And, that's a true story that happened in one of my friend's house. I'm like, man, that's cool. Cause when I was a kid, I could, man, you literally had to pay me to read a book. Like, I can tell you a story about that. Like, you literally would have to pay me to read a book as a kid. So it's very fulfilling and rewarding when you can see someone from that demographic, a reluctant reader, pick up your book and all of a sudden they've found a new joy in reading.
That's awesome. Hey, now that So You Want to Be an Athlete is out there in the world and you're getting great experiences like the one you just shared, do you have the writing bug? Are you going to be writing a second, third, fourth book?
Oh man, I got, my second book will actually be published, August of 2024. Can I Pet That Dog? Which is, just a fun book. The underlying message is bite prevention and consent. You obviously want to ask someone before, you pet the dog or get in their personal space. So that's my next project. And then I'm going to turn So You Want to Be an Athlete into an entire series based on different professions and hobbies and skills that kids can learn. So you want to be a doctor. So you want to be a lawyer. So you want to have a podcast, so on and so forth. So I'm I'm very excited to the future of, the So You Want to Be blank.
I really love that, and I'm really excited about that because I read a study many years ago, and it made sense. Kids who have dreams are happier, they do better in school, they're healthier. And when I read it, I thought, well, this is every kid has a dream. Every kid's thinking about different things. But I was fortunate. I made a living 35 years doing educational magic shows at schools around the country. So I was in front of 500 or 600 kids every couple of days. And so I said, well, let me do a little unscientific experiment. And I said, how many of you guys, just raise your hand, how many of you have a dream? You want to grow up to be this or that? And I was expecting the entire auditorium to put their hands up, but there was only about 40% of the kids raise their hands. And I repeated this experiment, and it was about the same result every time. And it really shocked me. And so I think that your series is going to really encourage kids to start dreaming so that they can get all the benefits of those dreams.
I agree, because it's 100% about exposure. If you live in a community and if you live in a community and you don't know any engineers or attorneys or doctors, you possibly can't fathom as a kid that's something you can be. A lot of kids I think want to be an athlete simply because I didn't know anyone who was in the NFL as a kid, but every time I turned on TV, I saw the NFL, I saw professional football players, so that was my exposure. But these kids growing up, they in some of these communities, they just don't have that exposure. They can't name one lawyer, doctor, attorney, or engineer, or a magician, or a podcast host, or anything. They're not exposed to it. So I think a great way to grant them is exposure through these creative ways of, writing books.
Right. Well, you have an open invitation to come back to celebrate those books here on Reading with Your Kids.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I appreciate it. I'll take you up on that offer.
Hey, Brandon, tell us where we can go to find out more about you and find out more about So You Want to Be an Athlete.
So, you can find me on brandinsbooks.com, and that's Brandon with an I. Instagram, EL_Sacco, that's El Sacco, and Brandon's Books on Instagram as well. The books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart. The books are available everywhere. And if you happen to be in South Florida, look on my Instagram page on Brandon's Books. We're doing events at the Oakland Park Public Library in Fort Lauderdale and also the Lake Worth Public Library as well. So if you're looking for me in person, that's the best way to find me. But, Instagram is a great way to communicate and to reach out to me if you'd like to get in touch.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of So You Want to Be an Athlete. Our guest has been Brandin Bryant. Brandon, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's Storyteller Chip, the storyteller from the United Kingdom, most famous for turning reluctant and resistant readers into recreational readers. Hey, Chip, great to have you back.
Thanks, Jedley. Now, Jedley,
Question for you. If a grown-up wants to help their kids move from picture books to those big old chapter books, what would you say they need?
Some kind of bridge would be good, like maybe short stories?
Totally agree. You don't teach a kid to walk across your living room floor and then expect them to walk all the way to the park, do you?
No, you drive them to a park a couple of times, and that way they can build up their strength when they get there.
Exactly. And that way they get to see just how amazing the park is, and so before long they want to walk all the way there.
But Chip, don't you think it's really hard to find good short stories for kids?
I did used to think that, but that's why I got together with my good friend Corky Paul. You know him, right? The award-winning illustrator of Winnie the Witch?
I know Winnie the Witch.
Right, well, Corky and I got together to start the Fables and Fairy Tales Book Club. Every month we send to your door a new collection of short stories guaranteed to appeal to all kids from ages 6 to 11.
Guaranteed?
Oh, okay, guaranteed is a strong word, but parents keep messaging us to let us know how everyone in their homes gathers around when these stories arrive. Kindergarten brothers beside their grade 6 sisters, beside their grade 26 parents, and they all enjoy them together. So maybe proven to appeal would be a better way of putting it?
You know, Chip, that sounds amazing. What kind of stories are they?
Oh, all kinds. Jedley, you'll get to discover who the real king of the jungle actually is.
Isn't that the lion?
Oh, no, actually, he's the king of the savannah.
Ah, of course. So who is the real king?
And you'll also get to meet the princess who gave birth to a dog, a cat, and a stick.
A stick? How did she give birth to
And the girl from Indonesia who survived being eaten by a giant.
Eaten by a giant? How in the world?
Oh, and the man from Japan who enjoyed a ride on a time-traveling turtle.
A time-traveling turtle? Chip, you gotta tell me.
And the horse who rode a boy home through the town.
Chip, stop. These stories sound incredible. How do I join the Fables and Fairy Tales Book Club?
Well, you just nip to epictales.co.uk/join and enter the code RWYK during checkout to get 30% off your first 3 months. Your family will then get a new book every month, handwritten letters from the authors and illustrators, and even invites to meet those authors and illustrators for exclusive online chats.
Authors and illustrators like you and Corky?
Absolutely.
So there you go, everyone. Head on over to epictales.co.uk/join to sign up for the Fables and Fairy Tales Book Club. And don't forget to use the code RWYK during checkout, and you'll get 30% off your first 3 months. Chip, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Jedley.
Join us right now from San Mateo in the great state of California. Our guest is here today to celebrate his debut picture book. It's called A Tall Tale. How the Ostriches Got Their Long Legs and Neck. Please welcome to the show, Scott Sollers. Scott, how are you?
I'm fine, Jed, and thank you for having me. I'm flattered.
Delighted to have you on. Scott and I just had a wonderful conversation. Scott, you're a fascinating guy.
Oh, come on. You're too kind.
We're gonna explore some of those things, but first, let's tell everybody about A Tall Tale. What's this story all about?
Well, this is these two communities are in Africa, and they're separated by a ridge. And on one side of the ridge is a barren, lifeless kind of land, and there's a tribe there called the Nohabs, and their chief is called Chief Nobody. And on the other side of the ridge is a lush valley and plentiful water, streams, vegetation, etc. And their tribe is called the Have-Alls, and their chief is called Chief Somebody. But in addition to all that wealth, they have pets called squats. They kind of look like little porcupines, but they're really fun. They can do chores. You can play with them. They're animated, and so they're a big part of the Have-Alls' lives. Well, the have-nots are looking across the ridge and seeing this lush valley and these fun pets, and they get a little jealous. And the chief is encouraged by his tribe to do something about it. So shall I go on?
Absolutely, yeah.
So with some encouragement from his colleagues, the tribes people. They go over the ridge and they start gathering up these squats to take their share back to the other side of the valley. Well, the alarm goes off and the Havals jump out and they start grabbing the squats, and ensues a big tug of war for each of these little guys. Well, they stretch and they pull and they tug and they pull, and before long you've got the ostrich. Well, the natives are about 3 feet tall. Now these ostriches are about 5 feet tall. They look around, they're going, wait a minute, we're doing all the work around here. It's time for us to leave. So they take off. And then somebody says to Chief, nobody, look around. This valley is big enough for the two tribes. Why don't you guys stick around and we'll figure out a way to work together? So they end up living together happily ever after without the squats.
Well, I love that story. And wow, wouldn't it be nice if our nation kind of read that story and said, you know what? There's enough stuff for all of us here. We can stop all this nonsense.
That's kind of the theme. Get along and share.
Yeah.
And even though you might have some disparate backgrounds, there's a lot of commonality in life. Mm-hmm. And I'm pleased with how the reception so far. People seem to enjoy the theme and the story. And the pictures, the artist who did the work is a genius. And the illustrations really are stunning. That's
wonderful. Let's give your illustrator a shout out.
Well, that means I have to remember his name. It's Alejandro, but it's not an easy name to remember. So why don't you, if you've got it in front of you.
I don't, but we'll give him a shout out in our show notes.
Okay, good. Because he is very, very talented. And I'm working on some other books right now. He's a heavily committed guy. So I'm actually working with another artist on the next 2 books. Mm-hmm. But I'm hoping to circle back with Alejandro at some point soon.
Awesome.
I've got 13 of these books I'm trying to get done.
Well, you were sharing with me beforehand that these stories kind of came to you a while ago as you was telling stories when your kids were younger.
Well, I read a lot when I was a youngster. And so I had kind of a fertile imagination in terms of visualizing the things that I was reading. And I loved it. I loved being taken to faraway places and visualizing what it was like there. So, I can't say I'm that creative or imaginative, but I did have those seeds planted with me when I was young. And my older daughter and I had our things that we did. We did little outings. And my younger daughter and I, at the time she was 5 or 6, her name's Stephanie. And I would make up stories for her. And one day she said, Dad, tell me the story about the family that lives in the trailer. Well, I'd forgotten. So I had to reconstitute that story. And then I decided going forward, I'd write an outline of the story after I made it up and told her so I could remember it. And sure enough, she'd ask me to repeat stories occasionally. Well, then eventually I had like 18 of these things. And I bought a book, hardback book, blank pages, and I hand wrote out a bunch of them and illustrated it myself as kind of an heirloom for my daughter and her kids. I now have 3 grandkids, and they are actually enjoying the stories now. And then a few years ago, I decided to take a swipe at the publishing world, and I was lucky enough to get engaged with a very excellent publisher and their marketing team. And what I'm a little astonished at is the reception that this book has gotten. It's been very flattering. I'm very humbled by it because I'm, let's face it, I'm a nobody in this sector. And it's just been really rewarding.
That's wonderful. You said a couple of things I want to jump back to. And we were talking beforehand about your youth when you were discovering that fertile imagination, when you were reading books and imagining what was going on and seeing these vivid pictures in your mind. I think one of the things that I feel bad for kids, I feel torn. When I was in 8th grade, if somebody told me that one day I'd have this thing in my pocket that would allow me to take videos and edit them and send them around the world in a second, I probably would have done something really dumb with it, but I would have been amazed.
Yes.
But at the same time, you and I had the opportunity, the necessity to use that imagination, to go out into nature and to walk in the woods and walk in the trails and wonder what's behind that tree over there, and have little adventures with your friends where kids today, they get to sit home and there's an adventure playing out that somebody else created for them.
And I am concerned about that,
Yeah.
frankly. I think it's a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
It robs youngsters of the opportunity to really broaden their own imagination, because the images that come in are so fast and they're so so plentiful that how can you absorb all that?
Right.
I mean, when you're reading a page of a book, let's say it's about the South Seas and the shipwreck and people trying to figure out how to get, survive and stuff. Those images are pretty vivid.
Mm-hmm.
And you can take all the time you want imagining them.
Yeah.
But when they're coming at you like crazy, so the artist's name is Alejandro Chavez.
I knew you'd get it.
He's very good.
So I'm sure you remember being out maybe in the woods with your friends, just concocting and playing out a story. Maybe it was cowboys and Indians, or pirates.
I was raised in Spokane, Washington, which has a very mild year-round climate.
Mm-hmm.
Summers are nice, winters are mild, and when we were little, we would go outside when the sun came up,
mm-hmm.
and we'd come inside when the sun came down.
Mm-hmm.
We were outside playing games, cowboys and Indians, robbers and whatever, football or baseball or whatever, all day long. And so and then same with school. I enjoyed school. I mean, the classes, what do I know now about youngsters' educations? But the point was, it was fulfilling.
Yeah.
It seemed to teach me the hard skill set I needed in terms of reading, writing, and understanding issues. So I was very, very blessed. In fact, I mentioned to you, I'm involved with a nonprofit that helps kids. Our main goal is to get them through high school.
Yeah.
So they have a chance.
Yes.
And I really am concerned about the depth and degree and permutations of social media,
mm-hmm.
and what that all means.
Yeah. No, it is. I think it's it is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, we're able to communicate and learn about other things, and kids are able to get information, but at the same time, they don't have to work as hard as we did, and I don't think hard work is a bad thing. I doing a little bit of research.
It's very interesting you say that, because if you don't mind, I'll share with you
Please.
some things I've learned over the years.
Yeah.
And I'm a real example of this, because I'm not that special. I've worked hard. I'm reasonably intelligent, but I'm no genius. And, but I believe that one thing I firmly believe in is whatever you're doing, whatever it is, do the best you can,
mm-hmm.
because somebody's watching and it's not who you think it is. And that's opened doors for me in life, just because I was doing something that needed to get done and made sure it was done properly. And somewhere out of the blue, a door opened for me that I didn't even know existed.
Right, right.
The other thing I've learned over time is to take an interest in others. Ask
mm-hmm.
questions. You'll learn something. And I can tell you that some of many of the ingredients in the books I wrote are from conversations with people and just fantasizing about this, that, and the other thing. Just these ideas evolved.
Yeah.
And the third thing I learned, which I haven't been 100% consistent with, but I try, is just trust your instincts.
Yeah.
Trust your instincts. If something feels right, do it. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it.
Yeah.
Kind of that simple.
Good advice. Good advice.
Yeah.
One of the things I hear from young people, not kids, but young adults, and I see it a lot on social media, this idea of, in the effort to get a good work-life balance, and I agree that that's a great idea. You don't want to work yourself to death. You want to be there for your family. But this idea of you hired me to do A, B, and C, and that's all I'm going to do. If you need help with D, you're just out of luck. And that's not, I get worried, because I know there are kids that are going to be out there like you, probably like me, that are like, oh, you need help with D? Sure, no problem. I'll help you with E, F, G, and all the way to Z too, because I know I'm part of this team, and if I help the team succeed, then we're all going to be better off. And those kids are always going to exist. And they're going to pass by these kids who I think the term is quiet quitting.
Jed, I couldn't agree with you more. And it's those kids that show some initiative and a little broadened interests that will be successful, because you don't know what opportunities are going to present themselves. And I mentioned to you earlier, I've had a career in finance. I never took a finance course in college or graduate school. I learned it on the job. But the training I got in school was very helpful. Prepared me to think analytically and do complete work. But, you need to be prepared to be adaptable. For things, I think. And I think children's books that show some imagination, this is one thing I admire about what you're doing, honestly, promoting this, because children's books that show some imagination and take kids to a different mindset are important.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think just as important are the conversations we have with our kids. And we can go, I've said this, I haven't said it as much lately, but we are, as parents, as grandparents, we are our kids' first and most important teachers. And we can help them. I hear a lot of parents say, well, my kids aren't being taught the critical thinking skills that they need in school. So, well, they should be getting that from us. And we can lay the foundation for that when we're talking about a book like A Tall Tale and talking about, what should these two tribes do? Should they still fight and stretch out the squats and make the ostriches, or should they come together and learn how to live together? How would that look? And really challenge our kids to think deeply.
Well, I agree. And, I have read other children's books to my kids when they were little. And so I know there's a broad range of both illustration types and depth of story and variety of topic out there. But honestly, what I tried to do was create a setting where it was kind of family oriented, introduce a conflict or a challenge of some kind, and then try and develop a acceptable and happy resolution to it. So people walked away satisfied. And that's a lot of life is like that.
It is. I think when we choose to make it that, it doesn't happen magically. We, like the characters in your book, we have to choose that. I have to take my hat off to you, or tip my bald head to you. I had that situation with my kids, and I remember to this day, because I can't remember the story. I told my kids a story about something falling out of the sky and blowing something up, and they thought it was hilarious, and they asked me to read it, tell them the story again, and I had no idea what they were talking about, and here it is, 30 years later, I still can't remember.
Well, that's why I wrote the outline.
I know, that's why you're so much smarter than me. You wrote down these outlines.
No, I knew I needed help.
I go on, I was sharing with you earlier that I made a living doing educational magic shows around the country. And my son was with me one day. We were pulling up, and he was helping me get into the venue. And I had been at this particular venue the year before, and it was a school, and a kid saw me, and he goes, "Hey, I remember you from last year. Do you remember me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course. You've grown a lot." And he's like, "Yeah," and he was like so happy. He walked away. I hope this kid isn't listening. But my son,
you have no idea.
My son turned to me and goes, "You didn't know that kid?" I guess, "No, of course not. But am I going to tell that to a little kid? I forgot him? No, of course. Yeah, you're my best bud. What's up?" But
apropos playing in a pro-am tournament years ago down at Pebble Beach, and I'm on a putting green with some celebrities, and this kid walks over to me with his dad. He says, "Can I have your autographs?" And I turned to his dad and I said, "I'm a nobody. He doesn't want my autograph." And his dad says, "He doesn't know that."
I love it. But I think, and I don't mean to pat ourselves in the back, but I think it's that attitude. It's like, this little simple thing, I can make this person happy. And what a great lesson to teach our kids. We all have these moments in life where all we have to do is to see a person, to acknowledge the person that's in front of us, and that can change their life for that and that moment.
Well, we both know there are a lot of challenges out there.
Yeah.
And, and the fact that complete families are less and less frequent now. We've got a working mom and dad that have been together for an extended period of time and kids under a roof. There's a lot of dislocation in the world. And, so, I was lucky. I was born and raised in a beautiful household and just given these incredible tools to work with. And that's why I'm involved with a nonprofit that helps kids, because they need it.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about that nonprofit and what you folks are doing.
Well, it's called The First Tee, and it was started about 30 years ago by the PGA, Augusta National, the LPGA, and the USGA, all golf organizations. And what they wanted to do was create a setting where youngsters could be introduced to the game of golf, but with a theme. And the theme was to teach 9 core values and use golf as the vehicle to explain examples of how those core values play out in life. And these are things like respect, understanding, honesty, integrity. They're kind of simple goals or concepts in life, but when you focus on each one individually and describe examples of how they play out, both in terms of a round of golf where you've got to be honest, you don't cheat, or interacting with people in an open and honest and respectful way. Those are life lessons that you can use. In our case, we use golf as the vehicle to do that. And in San Francisco, we touch probably 3,000 or 4,000 kids a year.
Wow.
In our program. And our goal is to help kids get through high school. We also have a scholarship endowment for kids that don't have the resources to go to advanced education, whether it's a trade school or a 4-year or 2-year school. And, so when we follow these kids, I've been at this for 25 years, the vast majority of the children that have been involved in First Tee have been productive. They've finished their high school, they finished advanced education, they have good jobs, they're starting families. And so I'm a golfer, so it's a fun thing for me to participate in, knowing that my sport is being passed on to other youngsters. But I don't care if they play golf later.
Right.
I don't care. What I care about is these core values and finishing high school and getting through college and getting a job.
Yeah.
That's what I care about.
One of the things I'm really happy to hear about your organization is that in addition to encouraging kids to go to a 2-year or 4-year school, you're also supporting kids who are making the choice to go to a trade school.
Absolutely. It's very interesting because they have to have a skill set to move forward. And I love it when a youngster is motivated to get an electrician's degree or certification or plumber school or woodworking. It doesn't matter. It gives them gainful employment. They can work with their hands. They're helping other people. There are enough scientists, doctors, lawyers, and bankers in the world. We need those tradespeople.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think, as much as I like ChatGPT, I ain't calling it to fix my toilet. And I'm not even going to ask it to teach me how to fix my toilet because I don't want to have to fix my toilet.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. So you were sharing with me earlier that in addition to A Tall Tale, which is out now, you have 2 more books coming out in the near future.
Yeah, the next one is called Lake Oh My Gosh. It's printed, it's done. It'll be distributed this month, and it's about a lake in New Hampshire called Oh My Gosh, because there's a creature in the lake, and people sight this creature and they go, oh my gosh. And so that name stuck, but there's a camp there. The kids go there for summer camp, no adults, just the kids. And there are some rules you got to follow. And these 2 little guys go out on the lake when they shouldn't. It's late. They don't have their life jackets and the storm is coming. So they get tossed out of their boat and this creature somehow lifts them up and brings them back to shore, saves them. And as the creature looks down at them and they look up at the creature, they just say, oh my gosh. And the 3rd book that's in production now, the artwork's being done, is called The Dancing Shoes. And it's about a ballerina that doesn't have confidence and doubts herself, and she's little, and her mother and dad see that, and so the mom hands her a pair of ballet shoes, and says, try these. This might help your confidence. She puts them on. She transforms. She becomes confident. She gets better. She doesn't fall or trip anymore. She's doing really, really well. This goes on for a few years, and then she loses the shoes on a bus, and she's distraught. Well, the shoes are gone, but the parents are ingenious. They go out and find a pair of shoes that are just identical. They scuff them up and put the same laces on and say, we found them. So she puts them on again, and she goes, oh, my gosh. So she gets her confidence renewed. She goes through her career. She becomes the principal dancer of the New York Ballet. And she says to her parents, you know, the shoes did everything. If it weren't for those, I'd be a nobody. And they said, the shoes were never my mother's ballet shoes. You did all this on your own.
Yeah, I love that story.
That's what they're all like, honestly, Jed. I mean, all of them have little conflicts, and, you know, I've had great fun with this.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that you're enjoying this. I'm so happy that you're creating these stories, because I think, you know, it's a nod back to stories and children's stories of the past, where it's just, is it comfy stories, cozy stories, you know, but just perfect stories that we can cuddle up with our kids and read, and they can read to us and read. And I'm thinking these are stories they're going to want to read over and over again.
It's interesting you say that, because I was in Philadelphia with friends over the weekend, and one of my hosts has grandchildren, and his grandson wanted, the fourth time he was being read the Tall Tale, he said, this is the fourth time he wants to hear this. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Well, you know, good books. There are books that I read to my kids over and over and over again. I have to tell you, Scott, there was one book I have a speech impediment, and it was really bad when I was a kid. Now, it slips its head out when I get tired and with certain letters, and one of them was F. And my kids, when I would come home from being on the road and I was tired, I think my kids were a little bit diabolical, because on those days they would want me to read Fox in Socks. And I think it was just fun for them to hear me go.
That's hysterical. They know, don't they?
They absolutely know. And
you know, every vulnerability imaginable.
Yep. I never caught them giggling behind my back, but I know they were.
Of course.
We should tell everybody where we can go to find out more about A Tall Tale, how the ostriches got their long legs and neck, and also more about you.
Well, the site right now is Mascot. It's on the Mascot site. You can order it. It's being distributed retail in August, so it'll be in bookstores around the country, presumably in August. But there'll be Barnes & Noble, Amazon, online ordering, you know, now, and so getting it is not that difficult. Mm-hmm. And then the next book will be available at the end of this month, actually.
Yeah, and I would actually recommend folks go to ScottSollersAuthor.com, because it's a beautiful site, and you can also pre-order there, in case you didn't know.
Yes, thank you for saying that. And I have to admit, I got some help putting that website together, because when it comes to computers, I'm a little clueless.
Well, you're very wise to have somebody who knows what they're doing deal with that stuff, so like I do. So we've had a great time speaking to the author of A Tall Tale, How the Ostriches Got Their Long Legs and Neck. Our guest has been Scott Sollers. Scott, thanks so much for being with us.
Well, Jed, I'm flattered that I was given this opportunity. Thanks for being so inquisitive and gracious. I appreciate it very much.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Until then, please be sure to connect with us on social media, Facebook.com/ReadingWithYourKids, @ReadingWithYourKids on Instagram and TikTok, and @JedleyMagic on X. We'd also love for you to check out a couple of other websites, our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. On our YouTube channel, you can find a really fun Drawing with Your Kids and STEM is Family Fun video series. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to start by thanking our guest, Brandin Bryant. Check out So You Want to Be an Athlete, and Scott Sollers. Check out A Tall Tale, How the Ostriches Got Their Long Legs and Neck. I want to thank my fantastic team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Judy Hu, Stella Sture, Hannah Bosange, Alyssa Montiero, Julia Lipman, Devin Hill. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all of her support. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place, and you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.